Good evening and good end of morning, let's say, in Costa Rica. So, good evening in Milan, in The Hague. My name is Aurelia Lorange with my colleague Miss Urbanova, co-director of the Chorals Foundation and organizer of this edition of the Hague Inter-University Debate Tournament. We'll be hosting a match, the first match between two teams. Two teams will be representing their university in the competition. It is their first official match, and we'll be happy to see them competing in this group. They received the topic already. So now I give the floor to my colleague, host of this match, Ms. Urbanova, and then we'll ask each student to introduce themselves. Ms. Urbanova?
Thank you indeed, and good evening and good late morning to our participants, and good day to you viewers and to our judges whenever and wherever you're watching from. It's a pleasure to have this group phase between the first time participating universities. As you know, the group phase 1, the day 1, has the shared theme of climate change, state responsibility and environmental law. So specifically, the two teams today will be debating on the issue whether or not customary international law practice establishes a requirement for states to implement regulation to protect public health and the government. So the two teams received this topic 7 days in advance. They have prepared for both sides of the argument. As traditionally, they will have 5 minutes to finalize their preparation after the algorithm allocates their positions. I will be giving the floor to the participants shortly. I see that one of the teams also might have a question. So we'll perhaps start then with the Latin American University of Sciences and Technology. You can choose one of your first speakers for introduction, and also please ask your question if that is what I'm reading correctly.
Yeah, hello, can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you. I know this is something out of our control. However, we would like to ask like about 3 minutes to connect our 3 members individually because we're having some technical difficulties. So I don't know if there will be any trouble with that before starting or...
That should be quite okay. We can run the timer for 3 minutes. And
Sure.
Once those 3 minutes are up, we'll then ask the Free University of Languages and Communications of Milan to start their introductions. And if you are not then connected by that time, we'll try to accommodate that. But please, there is not much time. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. We'll be fast. Thank you very much.
So yes, while the team from Costa Rica is reconnecting, please introduce yourself. So I would like to start with indeed Mr. Matucci. So could you please introduce yourself?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Nathan. I'm from Milan, and I'm studying artificial intelligence in ULM, and I'm here to compete in debate club. I already competed in the ULM debate club, so thank you for hosting us.
Thank you very much. We have as well Miss Giulia Lanzoni. Welcome.
Hello everyone, I'm Giulia and I am attending the 3rd year of my bachelor degree in corporate communication and public relations, and I'm here to represent ULM University, which I am the debate club president of, and today I'm here to host this match, and I thank you so much for this amazing opportunity.
Thank you very much. Welcome. We have as well Mr. Federico Binaghi. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello everyone, I'm Federico Binaghi. I am the 2nd year of bachelor in ULM, studying communication, media and advertising, and being in the debate world for 7 years, I can't wait to participate in this amazing tournament. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I'm mentioning as well that you have 2 coaches who are helping you, supporting you during this competition. Professor Alberto Mingardi and Miss Beatrice Lemay. from what I understand, was been participating to some competitions as well in the past. So two coaches on the side of IULM, University of Milan. So we are welcoming as well the connection of the students from Costa Rica. In the meanwhile, I can mention that you are in a group as well with two other universities. They got their match today. So can we ask already maybe one student from ULACIT in Costa Rica to introduce yourself? So, for example, Maria Carolina Gonzalez Blanco.
Hi, my name is Carolina Gonzalez Blanco. I'm from ULACIT, Costa Rica, and I'm a second year in international relations student.
Thank you very much. Welcome. We have as well Maybel Melissa Fernandez Ramos.
Yes, hello. My name is Mabel. I'm also a second year student in international relations, and I'm very excited to be here with you guys.
Thank you very much. Welcome. And I think we have the last member, Gabriel David Jimenez Benavides.
Yeah, hi. So my name is Gabriel. I'm a third year student here at ULACIT, International Relations, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much and welcome. You are supported by two coaches. The Dean, Mr. José Armando Madrigal Segura, and as well Professor David Garnier Mendes, who is in the room. I saw him. So welcome to both of the coach. So two coaches on both sides. So now I give the floor back to my colleague to remind the topic.
Indeed, thank you very much. I won't have the floor for much long, as my colleague will be sharing shortly also the algorithm to allocate your positions. But once again, the topic for today's debate is whether or not customary international law practice establishes a requirement for states to implement regulation to protect public health and the environment. Just a short reminder for those of you watching and also for the participants, when you will see from my video feed yellow, it indicates you have 30 seconds left. It is a good spot to start wrapping up your statements. If you see a red color, it means that your time is up. You don't have to cut yourself short, but it is not recommended to start new sentences or you will be cut short from our side. All right, and that's without further ado, I give the floor back to Professor Lorange to allocate for positions.
Yes, so I'm sharing my screen in a few seconds and you will see a wheel with double flags and logos of your institutions. So as you can see, there are two chances for each institution, either to be in favor or either to be against. So the team will be in favor. We'll be starting the match with the first introduction. So this will be ULACIT, Latin American University of Science and Technology of Costa Rica, will be in favor. So it means we'll be doing as well the introduction, and as a consequence that will be IULM University of Milan will be against the motion. Concretely, it means that ULACIT will be defending the position that customary international law practice establish a requirement for states to implement regulation to protect public health and the environment, while IULM University of Milan will defend the position that customary international law practice does not establish a requirement for states to implement regulation to protect public health and the environment. So now you will have 5 minutes to review your notes, and after the 5 minutes we'll be starting with the introduction by ULACIT in Costa Rica.
Thank you, everyone. The time for final preparation is thus over. We'll be starting by hearing the opening statements of our participants, starting with the Latin American University of Sciences and Technology. You will now have 4 minutes for your opening statement whenever you're ready.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to start. So, honorable jury and esteemed members of the University of Milan, it is a privilege to address you today on a matter of profound importance. Whether customary international law establishes a requirement for states to implement regulations to protect public health and the environment. International law is not static. It evolves through state practice and the belief that such practice is legally required. So, states have developed a customary obligation to regulate environmental and public health matters. First, state practice and opinion juries clearly indicate a growing international consensus. Many states have long implemented environmental and health regulations, not merely as a policy preferences, but with a sense of legal obligation. This widespread and consistent practice supports the existence of a customary rule. Second, the principle of prevention, a well-established norm in international law, requires states to prevent transboundary harm. This obligation, recognized in such as the Trail Smelter Arbitration of 1941, implicitly mandates domestic regulation to mitigate risks before they escalate beyond national borders. Moreover, human rights obligations have increasingly been linked to environmental protection. The right to life, health, and clean environment are fundamental, and as many states incorporate these rights into their legal frameworks, it strengthens the argument that such protections are now customary law. Treaties, while not customary law on their own, significantly influence customs. Landmark agreements such as the Stockholm Declaration of 1972, the Rio Declaration of 1992, and the Paris Agreement of 2015 have shaped global expectations and state behaviors, reinforcing the necessity of regulatory measures. The no-harm principle, rooted in sic otir tuo utinanium non laedas, is a fundamental concept in international law. States have duty to ensure their activities do not cause harm to others. Given the global implications of industrial pollution, climate change, and disease outbreaks, domestic regulations are not just advisable but required. International law evolves over time, and today we see customary law developing to include environmental and public health obligations. Courts such as the International Court of Justice, the ITA, have reinforced this trend in cases like the pulp mills on the river Uruguay and the Naguimaros project, affirming states' responsibility in this area. Additionally, UN resolutions and global consensus contribute to this emerging customary norm. Finally, in conclusion, the combined weight of state practice, legal principles, judicial decisions, and global consensus suggests that customary international law does indeed impose an obligation on states to regulate environmental and public health matters. Ignoring this reality not only threatens legal stability, but also endangers global well-being. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'll now hear the opening statement in the against position. University of Milan, Free University of Languages and Communication, you have 4 minutes.
My speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Hello everyone, I'm Giulia, and I'm the first speaker of the opposition. And today I'm here to sustain the position against the obligation of customary international law in environmental and public health regulation. We must challenge the assumption that customary international law imposes a legal obligation on states to regulate public health and environment. While protecting these areas is undoubtedly important, the idea that states must follow a not binding international norms overlooks key issue of sovereignty, economic stability, and national interests. Now, our line is built on three principal lines that are the sovereignty of states, the economic consequences, so the risk to industry and development, for example, in particular for what regards rising economies, and lastly, the international agreements that are voluntary and not legally binding. Starting from the first point, we want to underline the sovereignty of states. Each nation has fundamental right to govern itself. Customary international law is not codified and does not hold the same legal weight as treaties. While some states choose to engage in environmental agreements, they do so voluntarily. Imposing external regulations on all nations disregards the fact that different countries face different challenges. The United States' withdrawal from the WHO is a clear example of a government prioritizing national policy over international influence. Similarly, states should have the freedom to decide how they regulate their industries and healthcare systems without being forced into compliance by not binding legal norms. Second, we want to address the economic consequences, saying that enforcing international environmental and public health regulations could devastate industries essential to national economics. Many developing nations depend on industrial expansion for economic growth. Restrictive regulations could lead to job losses and could reduce industrial output and produce economic stagnation. Consider the case of emerging economies, countries that relies on subsidies and international trade to develop. If forced to comply with strict environmental standards, they may struggle to sustain growth, leading to increased poverty rather than progress. Even powerful economies like the US refused, for example, to ratify the Kyoto Protocol, recognizing that it placed an unfair economic burden on industries while failing to hold all nations equally accountable. Our last point of our line is the international agreements that are voluntary and not legally binding. While global agreements like the Stockholm Declaration of 1972, the Rio Summit of 1992, and the Paris Agreement of 2015 show international concern, they are not legally binding under customary international law, because these agreements serve as moral guidelines, not enforceable mandates. If international cooperation were truly compulsory, we would see several penalties for non-compliance. The reality is really different because states enter agreements based on national interests and not based on legal obligations. The fact that some nations opt out, like for example the US that I mentioned before with the Kyoto Protocol, that we also will explain in a better way in the next speech, highlights that the international regulations cannot override national policy decision because of the sovereignty of states that we mentioned before. In conclusion, customary international law does not and should not impose mandatory environmental and health regulations because nations must retain their sovereignty to make decisions in their own best interests. Overregulation threatens economic stability. A state's responsibility is first and foremost to its own citizens, not an abstract, not binding international standards. So we oppose to the motion.
Thank you. Thank you. We have now heard the opening statements of both sides. We'll now proceed to hear the rebuttals. Starting with the first rebuttal in the favor position. ULACIT team, you now have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. As we have established previously, customary international law does establish a legal duty for states to regulate public health and environmental protection. This is necessary for states to defend their own needs and interests in the terms of public health and environmental dignity. State opinion and state practice and opinion jury. These are two key principles that make customary international law required to actually be applied in the countries that not only need but also are willing to abide to the environmental and public health frameworks that we will mention. These key factors also take into consideration the binding aspect of customary international law, where a state, when a state is consent and the state has practice, this is evidenced through state actions, and so in this case, it can be legally binding. Specific statements of specific covenants and treaties that we will mention later on make binding statements on regards of public health and environmental law, which result in the placement of certain countries, for example, Costa Rica as one of them, as the highest participants in environmental performance index and public health indexes as well. The International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, the ICESCR, or so-called the Economic Covenant, is the most important in terms of the right to health. Article 12 of ICESCR states that the right to health includes the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health. This cannot be left to the interpretation of each state. It cannot be left to a subjective matter. It has to be a principle established and abided by all of the countries of the world, because it is not a non-universal principle. Health and environmental health are universal, and all humans should have access to the same conditions and the same quality of life, as I mentioned, the highest attainable standard, not just a particular standard that is enough for a certain country based on their own framework. Just to mention, the Protocol of San Salvador is one of the key binding, actually, treaties that rule over the OAS states that ensure that everyone shall have the right to health, understood to mean the enjoyment of the highest level of physical and mental and social well-being. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll now hear the first rebuttal from the IULM team. In the against position, you will have 2 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
My speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Good evening, everyone. I'm Federico Binaghi, and today I'm going to discuss why the opposition team clearly has the better cards in this debate, starting by 4 main points. 1, every government should have interest in their own country. Number 2, no legal nature but moral, and even if those regulations are legal, the states are not incentivized to follow them. This will lead to a way worse situation. Number 3, no country should sacrifice their own progress for to chase these regulations that actively could harm the situation of the rising country. In fact, if a country is developing, if it has means to develop, it should not look to repair what the damages that have been made by other countries. And finally, based on this principle, countries that can effectively make a change, countries that are wealthy, that are already developed, should strive to better themselves. But countries who are not, who are rising, who are not developed yet, should not be encouraged, or worse yet, to or being forced to change their ways and sacrifice their potential in order to achieve a goal set by states that have been already that have already risen. So this is absolutely unfair in fact of in the face of the rising countries. Moreover, the Stockholm and Kyoto and Paris Agreement are all important in this debate, but they show that, for example, the Paris Agreement have been not the USA rejected them lately. So this just shows that the countries are disincentivized in adopting them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'll now hear the second rebuttal, starting with the team in favor. ULACIT debate team, you will have now 2 minutes.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I will start in 3, 2, 1. As has been mentioned before, customary international law establishes a clear obligation for states to regulate the order to protect both public health and environment. This duty is not voluntary, nor does it depend on treaty ratification. CIL is legally binding on all states, as recognized by International Court of Justice and upheld in numerous international rulings. Environmental protection is not only a legal obligation, it is a necessary for long-term economic stability. The European Union, for example, sets a precedent for a strong environmental regulation through EU environmental directives and enforcement networks like the IMPEL, proving that sustainability and economic success go hand in hand in countries. Ignoring environmental harm leads to economic crisis, as pollution, resource depletion, and climate disasters impose far greater costs on countries than the prevention costs. Some argue that states should have full sovereignty over their industries, but sovereignty is not absolute as it comes with responsibilities. Just as states cannot violate human rights under the excuse of sovereignty, they cannot ignore their duty to prevent environmental harm that affects their nations and other nations. Additionally, state practice overwhelmingly shows compliance with environmental regulations, reinforcing that these obligations are customary and not optional. Opponents may claim that developing countries should not have to sacrifice progress, but this argument presents a false choice. The biggest threat to developing nations is environmental degradation, which disproportionately harms their economies and populations. Sustainable policies do not hinder growth. They ensure long-term stability, create jobs in green industries, and prevent crises that set development back further. Costa Rica is the greatest example of a developing country that continues to prevent environmental harm.
Thank you. We'll now hear the second rebuttal for the against position. IULM team, you now have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. So the proposition team has kept saying that to better than ways and follow those guidelines because it will be better for the economy. But this is unfortunately untrue. Rising countries do not have the means and the capacity to, in fact, change their ways in order to rise, in order to reach higher goals. These goals that we are talking about, the international law, is set by wealthy countries. We cannot say that those laws are applicable to countries that do not have the means, the money, the energy to invest in something else that instead of being concentrated on rising. It should just not be possible for rising countries to develop new ways, new strategies to come up at the top. So proposition team said that we proposed a false choice, but this is not true because the only choice is the choice that we brought. This is the only choice. We cannot force countries to invest money on something that they could never achieve, even if they tried. Because of this, our team is against the motion fiercely. We believe that poor countries, the countries that are emerging, that rising countries, should not have the obligation, albeit it being moral or legal, because let's analyze this. If this obligation, because part of the debate was, is this legally binding or morally binding? If it was morally binding, then we have won the debate because it is not something that was proven not to set to poor countries. But if it is legally binding, and this is not the case, anyway, poor countries should will be disincentivized to adhere to these standards. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'll now enter the last stage of the debate. We'll start to hear the rebuttals. Team in favor, ULACIT team, you now have 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me well? Yes?
Yes.
So in response to the opposing team and the comments that were just mentioned, we would like to say that it is not ethical, it is not correct, it is not even theoretically accurate to say that poor countries cannot strive to actually integrate frameworks that will develop and improve the public health and environmental quality of their land. And it is also not accurate to say that these countries are not in a place to follow these frameworks, which are created for countries all over the world. That is why it is called international law, to follow this as a guiding system to improve their overall health and the quality of life for their people as a global governance accord. Now, we have mentioned, and we would like to emphasize on the fact that environmental law is part of the third wave or third generation of human rights. It is a human right to have access to the highest quality of life. Public health and environmental health are involved in this third generation of human right, which is also known as the international human rights. These are rights that are shared by all humans on Earth, and it is not exclusive to a country. It is not exclusive to a country's resources, and it is not exclusive to a country's ability to grow or develop over or in comparison to others. So as our stance, we are committed, for example, our country, Costa Rica, which is a developing country, it is highly committed with the SDGs, and it is constantly ranking in the highest scores of the indexes of international environmental performance and public health performance as well. So this shows that countries, not only the rich countries, but the poor countries also, can participate and are also in their full right of participating within these frameworks, and they do have a result, and Costa Rica is one of the best examples to abide by this argument. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your submission. We'll now hear the conclusion in the against position. IULM team, you have 2 minutes.
We're starting 3. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, I start in 3, 2, 1. Not ethical and correct is what the proposition is saying about the emerging countries, that they can actually cooperate. But cooperation is all about this debate. Cooperation should be encouraged, not with like legal boundaries, but with something that could help all the country and the state as well to rise their economy. And not ethical and correct, okay, but why the West, the strongest nation, USA, like withdraw from all the agreement, all the organization? That's something that is we can't ignore, because we are talking about benefit of some country against the rising economy. We actually think that regulation as opposition is a threat for the economy and the sovereignty of this state. And sovereignty is actually one of the pillars of the international customary law. So as opposition, we're talking about countries that have needs, and they know which needs they have. We can't afford to create a worse situation where these boundaries are like against some country of benefits of others. So as we mentioned before, European and Western states have already used economic growth at the expense of public health and environment. Now we cannot allow emerging countries pay the price of this. We have to actually create cooperation with, legal boundaries. That's okay, but they have to be like for everyone. We can't afford that USA, for example, as we said before, can actually withdraw from any of their commitment. So as an opposition, our statement as opposition is that country must cooperate, not create benefits for some and against the others. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your submission. You can all now relax. You're no longer rated after this part. As is already our tradition over the course of the debate editions, we would now like to give you the floor to reflect on the match, on your preparation and on the topic, and maybe to give already a little bit of feedback, maybe also to your opponents. So starting by giving the floor to ULACIT team, Ms. Carolina Gonzalez Blanco, how did you find the debate? How was the research for you? And were you maybe already familiar with either the customary international law or the topic in general?
I think it was definitely a really enriching experience We were discussing a lot of topics, both for the against position and the in favor, and we were even discussing them, reviewing them some minutes ago, and it was really enriching how we could share, but especially the point of Costa Rica, I want to say that it was definitely an advantage of how we know that even developing countries do have the ability of um, putting into research and protecting these rights of both the environment and public health to provide a better situation for their citizens. Yeah, it was really great.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing a bit of background information as well with us. Mr. Federico Binaghi, the same question to you on behalf of your team. How was the research for you? Maybe were you already familiar with either aspects of the topic or the topic as a whole?
So, personally, I wasn't very aware of the topic, like the regulation international. I mean, I thought that were regulations, but I was not informed on them. So it was really interesting to like search them and like search information. I was also a bit baffled about how the motion was like stated, as I was like I was not sure how to interpret it. Like it seemed like it was a sentence. It was a definition, as and so we as a team like we're not sure how to interpret the motion. But that's all. I think it was really interesting to prepare the debate.
That's quite a challenge, and I must say kudos to your and the other team. I saw some nodding as well from the Costa Rican team. So perhaps that was one of the shared challenges for your teams. Ms. Fernandez Ramos, how was it for your team? Am I reading this correctly? And also maybe a second question, how was it listening to the arguments of your opposition? Were you surprised, or did you hear some familiar arguments?
Yes, thank you. Well, researching this topic was very fun, I think, to us, because I have to say, we are very familiar with this topic because we have an exceptional professor here at ULACIT that is actually focused on human rights, and she is very passionate about environmental and international law. So we definitely had a strong background, and we enjoy a lot of conversation regarding this topic. So it was really fun to discuss and be able to research on a deeper level. And I'm sorry, what was the question that you asked? I was thinking about the first part.
If you heard maybe from your opposing team,
Yes,
some of the arguments that
course.
your team as well found in the research or were preparing for this
Yes.
position.
Yes. Well, we were definitely when we were preparing, we were leaning towards the opposing side when we were doing our research. That was kind of like our bias. When we were doing research, we were thinking that it was kind of like a better route to go in the debate. And I definitely heard some of the arguments that we would have used. The fact that they are created by the most developed countries, and they are imposed on the lesser developed ones is one of them. Also, the fact that it is not legally binding, as international law is. The entire dilemma with international law is that it is a law, but it is not legally binding. So then, how can you enforce it? But yeah, in general, I think that we would have gone a similar route.
Well, thank you very much for sharing. Mr. Amatucci, how was it for you? Did you hear maybe some familiar arguments from the other team as well, from what your team researched?
No, I mean, we weren't actually prepared as they probably are. We don't have a professor that's maybe teach this type of thing, so we actually do our own research, and yeah, it was actually, hard to understand some topics about this type of law. So we try our best, but yeah, we we have seen like that we are not really prepared listening to the other proposition. That's it.
But no worries, you will have many more experiences and you will get better at
Yeah.
research as well. But from the
Okay.
organizing side, it was a pleasure to hear the first debate, and also for both universities, it's the first official participation. So well done on your interaction during the debate. Of course, our team doesn't have just a declaration. We don't have anything with the grading. That is in full hands of the judges. But just also to give the floor to your third members for the ULACIT team, it is Mr. Jimenez Benavides. How was it for you? Is there maybe some message you would like to share with the other team on the debate? And how did you find the topic?
Yeah, thank you very much. I must say it was very interesting preparing, particularly in my case. I was a substitute. I was a substitute from another team member that couldn't be today here. However, I was kind of familiar with this topic as another colleague said. It's very good to learn regarding especially environmental law. And I think the advice I will give to the other members is to continue learning, because learning it's something that will never stop. You will ever literally in every place learn a lot. So yeah, I think that would be my advice.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing. Ms. Lanzani, the best for the last, or on this kind of feedback round at least. How was the debate for you? Is there any message you would like to share with the other team, and how was the topic?
I found it a really interesting debate from the starting to the end, and I learned many new things, mainly in the preparation and also today, because many of the arguments that you took are like, for example, on your country, and during the research we didn't focus on like specific countries and, for example, your country, but in a more international key of reading. And so it was really interesting for us to learn new things about your reality. And the theme was really motivating also in the preparation, and we like create teamwork that has worked during the preparation, and also during the debate preparation, and during the speeches today. And what I want to say is to focus on what you want to communicate, because communication is the key of what you want to explain, and like the clearancy you want to express is really important to develop a message. So it is what I want to pass. Thank you so much, everyone, for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the feedback. And we also do really encourage for the participants and the students, as well as the professors and the judges, to stay in contact. And perhaps one way we can already try to encourage to do that is, if I can ask for the Costa Rican team, what would be the first food that the Italian team should definitely try if they come to your country, or perhaps even to your city? What would be the thing to do?
Well, I would say the thing to do if you come to Costa Rica is definitely visit the coast. Guanacaste is my favorite place in the entire country, and it's absolutely breathtaking. La Fortuna is also really pretty. Actually, Maria Carolina is from that area, and it's breathtaking. It's one of the most beautiful places. It has a really nice volcano. And food, I guess we're not really known for our like gastronomic aspects. We're more like we have good nature. That's the thing, not really the food. The food is okay, but people like gallo pinto. That's like the traditional breakfast. So maybe that. It's rice and beans, so don't expect much, but it's nice. It's nice sometimes. Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing. I saw Miss Gonzalez. There was a reaction when you said the food is not much known for the country. So, if you have any other tips for your co-team in this debate to share, that could be one way to stay in touch. And same for the Milanese team. What would be the thing to do if your opponents landed in Milan? You have two airports that they could choose from if they travel, right? And what would be the food to eat? There's quite a cuisine.
Yeah, Italy is mostly known for its food and also for the literature and for the museums. So another thing that I suggest if you come to Italy is like the cultural part that is really, really developed and really beautiful from the northern to the southern part. In every country, like Rome, that is the capital city, but also Milan is really full of culture, and also Naples. There are many, many countries that can many cities that can enlarge this culture. But about the food, the most known is, I think, pizza, that is known all over the world. And also pasta, like for example, in the Rome culture, pasta, cacio e pepe, carbonara, they are the most famous and also the best Italian food. And Neapolitan pizza is what you should try if you will come here.
All right. Well, then maybe also if your co-team members would like to add anything, we really do encourage that. Maybe one way you can stay in contact is to you can also, of course, ask the organizing team. If you would like to exchange email addresses, we also tag everyone on LinkedIn posts, so that is another way you can find each other. You are with other two universities debate teams in this group together going to share the journey of the group phase. And I do see Mr. Binagi. Yes,
Yeah.
the floor is yours.
Yeah, I think I was not tagged in the LinkedIn post because I do not use LinkedIn much, so maybe my account was not like recognizable. Like it had no profile picture. If you could, I don't know, send me a confirmation to my account, I can prove that it's mine.
Yes.
Just to say this.
Yeah, one thing we can do is if you send us an email with the link to your account, it can make it a bit easier to tag you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much.
Right.
So thank you very much, both teams, for this match, as well for sharing as well some more cultural aspect concerning your cities. I mean, San Jose in Costa Rica and Milan. You are indeed in the group with two other teams. They got their match as well today. That was a few hours ago. So it means in 2 weeks you will meet those teams separately, of course. So you will have a match on one side against Prince Sultan University within Saudi Arabia, and another match against Federal University of Minas Gerais in Brazil. So the two best teams out of these four teams in this group will be qualifying for the next stage in April, end of April, for the 8th of finals. But that was the day one match. Soon in 2 weeks will be the day two match, and then day three in a month from now. So yes, that was great to have all of you for this first match. Be aware that the judge will be watching the match during the next 2 business days, so you can expect around the end of this week the match, as a result of the match, with the grading rubric, I mean the scoring sheets, sent to your email once we finalize. Of course, for the free judge. The free judge don't know each other. They watch the match as well, and they can rewatch the match if they want during the next 2 business days. So voilà, this is what we could tell for this evening and let's say lunchtime in Costa Rica. So many thanks again. Many thanks for this session. Greetings as well to your coach. And of course, we'll see you very soon. And don't hesitate to watch as well the other match of this session, because then you can see the different styles. from the different teams, different universities. So many thanks, Miss Urbanova as well for this session from us, of course. That is the end of the session, and see you very soon. Again, 7 days before the next match, we will get the next topic on a different theme. So for the day 2 matches. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Well done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Grazie, gracias. Bye bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye bye.